We are in the business of uncovering, developing, and sharing our clients' great untold stories, and we focus on a specific story. We call it your capital S story. It gets a capital S because it stands above all the others business leaders share, because it answers four fundamental questions: why somebody would buy from you, work for you, invest in you, or partner with you.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to my show. My name is Tiffany Alexander, and my podcast is called Unveiling Journeys with me. And this is your first time here. Welcome. If you are coming back, welcome back. And as you know, I love, love, love the power of networking, the power of getting to know incredible people, incredible companies or projects or products that they have. And of all places, I love to network in these networking groups or like high level masterminds. And of course, that is exactly how I met my guest that's going to be on today. And I'm so excited to tell his story because there are times in my life when being just like a small, medium real estate investor, I didn't even know what it takes for companies to operate and the things that are the intricate pieces that really companies need and they need to know about and they just need to hear. So I'm super excited because I get to welcome you, Paul. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you. Thank you. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you're up to right now.
Well, thanks, Tiffany. Really appreciate you having me here. I guess the people who know me best, our clients, would tell you that what I really am is a master storyteller. And at WordWrite, which is my company, we're in our third year in business. We are in the business of uncovering, developing, and sharing our clients' great untold stories. And we focus on a specific story. We call it your capital S story. It gets a capital S because it stands above all the others business leaders share, because it answers four fundamental questions: why somebody would buy from you, work for you, invest in you, or partner with you. And if you're watching this, you might be able to see that I have copies of the book behind me.
Oh, and what's the name of your book again? Tell everybody.
Finding your capital S story: why your story drives your brand.
Oh my gosh, I love it. And by the way, you almost have like a little bit of a radio announcer quality to your
I
voice whenever you
do
intro
have a
that.
degree in broadcast journalism, and I actually did spend 20 years in journalism before I got into the agency business.
Yes, I love this. I can't wait to crack into your story. So let's do this. Let's start from the beginning. Tell me, like, where are you at now? But where were you born and raised? And did you really want to be this when you were growing up?
Okay, so I was actually born in an operating room in a hospital. Just
It
there
was
was
a
a time
cold
when that didn't
Tuesday
happen.
or a sunny Wednesday, right?
My dad is one of 10 kids, and all of them were born at home. So let's just remember, we're not that far removed from that. But I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio. That's where I was born. And the two things I wanted to be when I was a little boy were a jet fighter pilot and a rock star. And I will tell you that I'm not a jet fighter pilot, although I'd still like to do that if I could handle the G forces and, you
Wave a
know,
magic wand,
yeah, right. But I do play in a band. So there you go.
There you go.
It's never too late to live your dreams.
Absolutely. I love that. So growing up in a household, we had plenty of aunts and uncles. And
Yes.
what was it like? You wanted to be a fighter pilot or now you're a rock star. What did you end up going to school for?
Well, so music is a big part of my life. And I was a very good tuba player. I studied with a guy in the symphony. And my parents had this conversation with me when I was ready to go to college. And that conversation was, we're not going to pay for you to become a musician in college. So I showed them. I decided to go into the highly lucrative career of journalism instead.
All right.
And it was a good ride. I really enjoyed it. I was in the Woodward and Bernstein era. So, I came home from college one summer with a t-shirt that said, if your mother says she loves you, check it out. And my mom didn't like that very much. I did have a 20-year career in journalism. And I covered everything from murders to the White House, not murders in the White House. Watch the Shondaland show, The Residence, if you want to learn about that kind of stuff. It's fiction, but there are some accuracies in there. So The West Wing was actually the most accurate White House show based on my experience. I covered the second Reagan term, Daddy Bush's term, and the Clinton first terms.
What was that like graduating out of your degree, actually going straight into the field that you decided you want to go into? Because a lot of people don't end up doing that.
Yes, that's true. I I often say when I speak about the book or other topics, which we might get into, there used to be a journalistic ladder of success. Now it's a manhole into oblivion. There's not much good that you can say about what's happening in the news business these days. But, I worked on a daily newspaper and I covered everything. Literally, I started covering police beat, did special projects and investigations, and went on to Washington, D.C., a congressional fellowship for journalists. I spent time working in the Senate and then on a presidential campaign for Senator Paul Simon from Illinois. I went back into journalism and, covered the White House, et cetera, for presidential nominating conventions. Did a few other things in journalism before I got into the agency business. That's one of those fields where you can start doing it before you even graduate college, and I did. I was writing for publications before I had even graduated, and my degree is in broadcast journalism. And literally, when I graduated college, my choice was between a print publication and the TV station in Williston, North Dakota, which I will tell you is in the second smallest TV market in the United States. And when I saw what the temperature averages in the winter in Williston, no offense if you're in Williston, I
No,
decided I was not going to do that.
you said you were getting ready to say second smallest, and I was gonna say, and third coldest, you know? Just
Yeah, probably. Probably.
that's incredible. Now, what were some of these? Because going from right out of school, straight into journalism, doing incredible things, pieces and works, what were
Mhm.
some of the key people that poured into you to keep you in your career? Because you wouldn't have stayed very long if you didn't at least enjoy it.
I mean, it goes back to my very first journalism professor, John Lowry, at Miami of Ohio, which is where I went to college. And he believed that every person had a story. And actually, he's in my book. If you were in the journalism 101 class, Tiffany, and you said, I don't think this person has a story, he would send you out onto the quad and tell you not to come back until you found somebody that had a story and came back and wrote it up. That's seminal key learning, right? Everybody does have a story, and I'm sure we can talk more about that. In journalism, I wrote about 10,000 stories and edited another 10,000. And you're with people in the best of times and the worst of times. It's a lot of beginnings, middles, and ends. You really learn what it takes to move people's hearts and minds and inspire action.
Yeah, that's incredible. When you were getting deep into the woods of this and then you're graduating up to like new levels of like working congressionally, what new level of just training did you have to have for this? Or was it just like fly by the seat of your pants sometimes?
Well, there is no replacement for doing, right? Think of Malcolm Gladwell. He's written so many great books. And one of his books, he talked about to become an expert at something, you need to spend 10,000 hours at it, right? And certainly that is the case with writing. And, I had lots of continuing education opportunities along the way. I didn't get an advanced degree, although a lot of people do. Stories are integral, seminal in human nature. I am confident, Tiffany, that when the first person figured out how to start a fire on purpose and tried to explain it to the second person, they told them a story. Our brains crave stories. And so along the way in journalism, you learn these fundamental principles of how to share a story. And I will tell you, it applies just as much to a story about the president as it does about the Girl Scouts selling cookies.
Yeah, there's always so many ways. It's interesting also to meet the people that don't tell stories and the people that do, and then they
Yes.
marry each other. My husband's like, "Can you just tell me the point of what you're trying to get to right now? Because I have a story for everything in that." All right, years and years. You said 20 years in journalism, and then what like sparked your next move? Where did you go?
Well, so I was editor of the Weekly Business Journal in Pittsburgh at the time, which is actually where my dad's family is from, and one of the reasons why my wife and I had settled here. And this ladder of success I talked about, the same company that owns Vanity Fair magazine and a number of others owns American City Business Journals, and they have 40 some papers, and they liked me, and they told me they were going to promote me, and I said when, and they said we don't know, and I said where, and they said we don't know. You could be in Oklahoma City or Sacramento or Fort Lauderdale, and that wasn't enough information for me. So I started networking with people I knew in Pittsburgh to find something else to do. And one of the guys I asked to help me was running the office of Ketchum Public Relations, which is the fifth largest PR firm in the world. And it was founded in Pittsburgh. Their headquarters has been in New York since the 90s, but still it was at that time a very important office. And he called me up one day and said he wasn't going to help me. And I figured that we'd written something that he or one of his clients didn't like. And Larry Warner was his name. He's passed away now. He had a very wry sense of humor. After what seemed like 10 minutes, but was probably only 3 seconds, he said, "Well, aren't you going to ask me why I won't help you?" I said, "Okay, Larry, why?" He said, "Because I want you to come work for me, not work for somebody else."
How about that?
And that's how I wound up in the agency business at a big public relations agency. That, Tiffany, was like getting an advanced degree in PR. I worked for clients ranging from Alcoa to Firestone. I was on the Go team for 18 months when their tires were blowing up on Ford Explorers. Worked for Rutgers University, Delta Airlines, FedEx, you name it. It was fantastic education.
Wow, that's incredible. Some of those, like, stories letting you live and be and do, like you're saying. What part of this chunk, like, how long did you stay there with them? Because obviously you're not with them anymore, so
Right.
you
Yeah,
need
I
to know
was there
more.
for 4 years. And then when I left, it was the original .com explosion. We'll see what's going to happen in 2025. But in the 2000, 2001, 2002 time frame, I went out on my own. I thought I was going to become a client. I've been a journalist. I worked at an agency. And so the next logical thing is to go work for some big corporation in-house, they call it. And instead, everybody I networked with told me that was a bad idea. And when I asked them why, they said, because you should start your own agency. And if you did, I'd hire you.
Ooh, that's incredible to think they had such confidence in you with everything you were doing. It's
Yeah.
awesome.
With that journalism background, journalists are not always the greatest business people, generally speaking. Okay. They're creative types, right? And so I wasn't a great networker, and I didn't consider that that fella, Larry, would want to hire me. And when people were telling me I should start my own agency, I didn't get it right away. But eventually I did.
Oh, man, that's awesome. So going and did you actually go start your own agency after your 4 years there?
I did. So when people started telling me you should start your own agency, I went and got all the paperwork and everything. And I was still talking to people about different things. There were a couple of big agencies that wanted to hire me to run their crisis practice, et cetera, et cetera. And I had a former client who actually, with the day we're recording this last week, I saw him again, our very first client. I spoke to the Youngstown, Ohio Press Club, and Tim's wife runs that, and Tim was there. And he called me up one day. I'm sitting at home in my home office filling out the company creation paperwork for WordWrite. And I look at the caller ID. It's Tim. He calls me up. He was at BASF, the big chemical company, running their North American communications at the time. And I said, I have good news and bad news. And okay, Tim, I said, he said, what do you want first? I said, you decide. He said, well, the bad news is I can't hire you, which was actually okay by me because as Tim and I talked last week when I saw him, he went from BASF, he went to Lexmark, he went to Florida Power and Light, he went to Pacific Gas and Electric. I'm sure I'm missing a company, but he was one of these kind of people who was extremely successful climbing the corporate ladder. And he had a small group of people he liked to move with him when he was brought in to revamp communications. And he was essentially interviewing me to become one of those people. And my wife and I had a family, and we didn't want to move every 18 months or 2 years. So he said, I can't hire you, but the good news is if you had an agency, I can hire you. And I'm not kidding. Tiffany, I'm sitting there looking at the paperwork. I said, I think I can do that.
That
So now
serendipitous,
boy, what a way to start, right? So I hang up the phone. I'm filling out the paperwork, jamming to some music or something. Phone rings again 15 minutes later. And I look down at caller ID. It's Tim again. I pick up the phone. There's got to be a problem, right? So I said, hey, Tim. He's like, there's a problem. I'm like, okay, what's the problem? He's like, you need to have a bank account and you need to let me deposit the check from BASF into your account on the first of every month, or this is not going to work. Said, Tim, we can do that.
right? I'm gonna
True
drive myself
story.
to the bank right now.
Strike me dead. That's exactly how it happened.
Oh, that's incredible.
Me
Those
and
are
he
so
I'm
fun.
running. burning bush or the voice of God. Start your company.
Yeah, I mean, it was handed to you other than all the people forming all the pieces. All right, right. So you start your own agency. This is incredible. You have your first huge contract. What happens?
Well, so from the very beginning, it was all about the story. One of the reasons why I got hired at Ketchum, I found out later, and this still happens, and it's only worse today because of what's going on in journalism. So if there's anybody in the audience who wants any attention from any media outlet, please pay attention to this. Journalists get inundated with completely bad pitches all the time. Companies are so bad at telling their story. And so one day they invited me over to Ketchum and I brought a day's mail. And I went through the mail with like 60 people in the room. And I had one of those, like, remember elementary school where you had these big round metal trash cans in every classroom? I had one of those and it was empty. And as I went through and explained why all these pitches from PR people or companies were bad, I dropped them in there and you could hear them going thunk, thunk,
Think,
thunk. And every time that I apparently was criticizing a pitch that came from somebody in the room, you could hear some young woman go, because I was, explaining why their stuff was bad. And this Larry Werner fellow, he told me later, he said, I knew I was going to offer you a job and hopefully hire you that day when I saw how you understood what it took to have a good story, right? And so from the very beginning, WordWrite has been all about the story. And business people, they get lost. They're too close to the trees. They can't see the forest. They can be very smart and very successful. And they just can't tell me in a sentence, why do you do what you do?
yeah,
And then they start talking, and it's like one of the adults in a Charlie Brown cartoon. It's like, wah," and you don't understand a word they're saying, and it doesn't make a difference, right?
man. Yeah. I relate to this a little bit because in my world of like, friends or engineers or nerds or whatever, they're trying to convey this incredible thing. And I'm like, I'm a little bit more of a wordsmith than they are. And I'm like, let me just translate for you at the moment. But really, the companies that you're working for, they should stay in their lane. Like, why should they be the experts? They really need to know that they didn't know that you should be their wordsmith, their story person, their front ability to convey why someone needs them and let them be the engineer or the lead magnet or the this. Like, let you do what you do best. And people are probably so far deep in their company, they didn't realize they skipped that step and it's not too late for them to go back, right?
Right. And, let's just, you can have a fair degree of success even if you're bad at sharing your story. Let's say 2 or 3 years ago when cybersecurity became a big issue and you had a cybersecurity company. I think you might have gotten some attention, even if you couldn't explain to your potential customers why your company A was different than company B or company C, right? And this has happened over and over again through human history. But you reach a certain point, either in scaling or the fortunes of your industry, et cetera, where you really need to be crystal clear about your story. And see, Tiffany, this is so fundamentally important. In our work, and I talk about this in my book, there's three main taproots for what we do. Number one, Simon Sinek, the author of Start With Why. The TEDx talk he did that started it all for him, where he said, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. Most people who are buying business services or products, they have two or three choices. They're all equally qualified. And I'm telling you right now, it's not always about price because a lot of times, if there's a problem, you don't want to go with El Cheapo. You want to make sure you got somebody who knows what they're doing. So if they're all equally qualified, it's the story that makes the difference, right? Carl Jung, the famous psychoanalyst, developed this concept called the collective unconscious, which essentially means that we are born hardwired for certain stories.
Hmm.
Joseph Campbell, the great mythologist, worked with this fellow you might have heard of named George Lucas to help him map out the 9 Star Wars movies and the journey of Luke Skywalker, right? There are these stories that human beings connect with. We see them in our minds, we hear them, they resonate with us. We get the experience of it right away. And what we do in our work is we tap into those elemental stories and story families and align them with the specifics of a company. What we're trying to do is help them create a story that is unique, compelling, and memorable, right? In other words, I'm going to be like, wow, I never heard that before. That's really interesting. I want to talk to you some more. And then when they need to buy whatever it is you do, they remember you, right? It's all there in our brains, but we get lost in these PowerPoints and these expensive, pointless brochures and bullet points and blah, 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 and technical specifications. And it's not what drives buying decisions. You
No.
know, it's what's that saying in business? People decide rationally, they buy emotionally. Well, what connects emotionally? The story.
Yeah. The story. What if somebody right now is thinking, gosh, I don't even know if this is me? Like, what could we be doing better if I had a better storyline? Are you like the person that they need to reach out to at this point? Like, oh my gosh, how do I fit the bucket to be able to come say, I want to be your friend. I need to hire you.
Right. Well, it's very kind of you to phrase it that way. You know, we don't like to be hammer salesmen. Do you know what I mean by that?
Yeah. We're not like show up and what they call 'em, pitch slap, like, just
Right. Well, you know, the hammer salesman's story is this. No matter what your problem is, you need to buy my hammer, right? You may not have any nails, but you still need my hammer. So I'm
okay. Yeah.
not going to tell somebody that no matter who you are or what you do, that we're the right answer for you. But I will tell you that no matter who you are or what you do, I'm happy to chat with you. And if we're the right fit for you, we'd be delighted to work with you. And if we're not the right fit for you, we'll help you find the right people who are, right?
Absolutely.
What's
I
this all
agree.
about? It's about networking and the power of networking, right?
It is, it is. I tell people, I'm like, "I'm not a good fit for everybody." But when you start Rolodexing humans,
Yes.
great ones, it's like, "Oh, man, you know what? I'm not the guy, but I know a guy," or, "Let me find a guy for you."
You know, it's funny you mentioned that. I'm in Pittsburgh and I'm connected to a former Pittsburgh Steeler. And he actually started a company called I Know a Guy.
Yeah? It's like a full company?
It's a real company. Yeah.
That's incredible. There was a I was I don't know, like a month ago, I was on a podcast called I Know a Guy because he's just, like, interviewing everyone every day, and
Mhm.
it's like, that's 365 episodes a year. It's incredible to think you can but yeah, I mean I love that so much. Yeah, you gotta know a guy, and if I don't know a guy, just like, um, Henry Ford, like, I may not know everything, but I know if I push a button on that desk, the right person's gonna come into the room because I shouldn't know it all and clutter up my brain with all the info. I need to know the right person who's gonna make it happen because I shouldn't be the expert, but
You've,
only in
you've
what it is that I do.
obviously read Think and Grow Rich, right?
Yeah, you kinda have to as a like a
That's the
newbie
words of
real
the
estate
book.
investor.
Yeah. I read from that book every day along with How to Win Friends and Influence People.
I love that one too, Dale Carnegie. He is
Yeah.
incredible. Yes, I have a couple of the little skinny ones in my drawer that I'm like, yeah, you just gotta go refresh yourself on that stuff every now and again.
Basic principles for life.
Oh, absolutely. All right, I know we're leaving out a ton of stories, but where in your story does the band come in? Because you're in a band now, but you went from gonna show them, you went to journalism instead of tuba, but I need to hear a little bit more about that too.
Okay. So I was actually in the choir in middle school and they accidentally put me in band. And you would be shocked, but there aren't that many people who want to play the tuba. So that's how I wound up playing the tuba. Well, like I said, I was actually good at it. And one of my teachers along the way said, well, you know, you should learn. Have you ever played guitar? And I'd actually taken guitar lessons, much to my mother's upset. She wanted me to be a saxophone player. But anyway, so if you know how to play guitar a little bit, you can play the bass. So I mean, there's just a lot more call for bass players. So I started playing in high school and played in high school bands. And then when I got married, my wife said to me, promise me one thing, you won't play in a band. So I put that down for a while. But as our kids got a little bit older and I had friends, well, okay, here's the story. My daughter's in high school, my younger daughter, and she's playing viola. And I belong to a private club I was on the board of here in Pittsburgh. And they decided to have a fundraiser called the Scary Talent Show. So wouldn't it be funny, haha, to have a tuba and a viola, you know, a pretty young lady and a guy played it. So I did that. We played Beauty and the Beast.
That's
And
so
all
cute.
my friends were in the club were like, we didn't know that you played tuba. Do you play anything else? I said, yeah, I play bass. They said, well, we need a bass player. And
How
then
about that?
off to the races. That was Johnny B and the Accelerators. After that, I played in a country band. That was an R&B band. Played in a country band called Lindsey Neal and Kickback. That was fun. Lots of stories from that. And then people, right? So the same drummer was in the Johnny B band. I brought him into the Lindsey Neal band. And then the band I'm in now, The Altered Egos, thealteredegos.com. Please go check us out.
Yeah.
Joe said we need a bass player. He's been in that band now for 3 years now. And we recorded an album.
Yes.
I wrote a song on the album, and it's a lot of fun.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much. And the website is awesome. I highly recommend. It'll be in the show notes below so you guys can go take a peek at it. It's like your side hobby, right?
Well, I know I dumped a lot of stuff on everybody there. Here's the short thing. I firmly believe that every human being is born as a creative individual. By the time we are 5 years old, most of our creativity has been beaten down, right? Like, I firmly believe we're all great storytellers, right? So this is one of the ways that I connect with aspects of my creative personality, right? And I wrote the book, and I met with my editor this morning. We were just catching up. She's writing a book, and I've got 2 novels outlined and a few other books, right? That's just me. Whatever floats your boat. Maybe you're a sculptor. Maybe you paint. Maybe you like to garden. Whatever, whatever, whatever. Feed those sides of your personality, because that is going to help you in business. Trust me. I have friends who are great gardeners, and they're like out there, sweating, toiling in the garden, and their brain's still firing. And they're like, man, I came up with this great idea for my business while I was cultivating tomatoes. Well,
Yeah.
see, that's what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
Everybody talks about coming up with great ideas in the shower. Well, you're not going to most people won't spend 2 or 3 hours in the shower, right? But you can spend 2 or 3 hours doing something fun that feeds another aspect of your personality. I guarantee you it's going to make you better in business.
I think it almost might be getting increasingly more disconnected because we can stare at our phones so easy.
So
But
true.
I really do enjoy, like, getting back to nature and just zoning out. Like, if I can go dig in the dirt, people are like, "We pulling your own weeds?" I'm like, "It's only a little baby yard." Like, yeah, I could just sit and simmer with myself that I don't do if I'm on a screen or hanging out with someone else or on my phone. But being able to almost, like, access your own creative space again, and, like, some people say, "Oh, I can't sleep at night." Like, 'cause you didn't hang out with your brain at all, and now your brain wants to hang out with you at night.
That's right. Tiffany, you're so right. I read a fascinating article a couple of weeks ago about birdsong. And, you can download a lot of expensive apps on your phone, and you can play these little routines to help you sleep, and some have birdsong in there. Well, there's been a lot of research done on the importance of being out in nature, and in specific birdsong, and how that is helpful to quieting, calming, unlocking the power of the human mind.
Oh, yeah. This is so cool. I love how your story kind of all comes into like this nice little version of you, but also like circling back around to how cool it is that you went out and you did everything you did and you developed this company and you realized what was missing from some people. And through the years and years of like perfecting this ability that you had, like some people just have this gift that they've been given. If you go hire somebody to try to train them up what it is, some people don't have that. And it's like you met the perfect opportunity for your gift and then the doors that open to come in. And now you're able to go and make that an actionable step for someone to have an increased amount of XYZ for someone's company because they can translate themselves better. I had someone great in my life the other day say, make what it is that you do clear, not clever. Like if people know what it is, hands down, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Reminds me of a quote from Pat Riley, the many, many times the winningest NBA coach, right? Make the main thing the main thing.
Absolutely. My gosh, you've been an amazing guest. Let's do this. Tell me where you want at this point people are thinking, I need to know you. Where do you want them to come find you at?
That is so kind. WordWriteAgency.com is our company. You can find me there. You can also find me on LinkedIn. I'm one of, according to my research, about 400 people in the world that have the last name Furiga. So Paul Furiga on LinkedIn is a great place to find me. I post probably 4 or 5 times a week. A lot of content goes there too.
Perfect. And if you're thinking, how do I find Paul? Well, friend me. You'll go through my list and you can find Paul.
There you
Shoot me
go.
a message. You're going to be tagged in all the things that we can put you on. And on top of all of that, you have the ability to meet with people. You want to know what it's like to just have this like initial meeting with everyone. So you're open to that. I love that, your generosity. And then from there, let's do this. Leave me with kind of your favorite little advice or nugget that we want to end our show with.
Wow, there are so many great ones that I think for an audience like this, Tiffany, it's really important to think about it this way. You must be the best storyteller of your organization's story. There is no such thing as a vacuum in communications. If you don't still tell your story, your competitors will be happy to tell it for you. And guess what? They're not going to tell the story the way you want it told.
Love that so much. You're so right about that. Your competitor's gonna tell that story. You may as well show up and be your best and brightest and
I mean, we've had, crisis clients where one of the things that happens in the crisis is every competitor gets on the horn, email, whatever, and they're like, "Hey, we know you work with XYZ company. We thought you'd want to see this, switch to us, blah, 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 whatever," right? And if you haven't been out there telling your story, that's a problem.
yeah, absolutely. Man, you've given such good nuggets, and I love to hear how your story, like, unwinded, and we call it unveiling. Thank you so much for your time, for coming
Thank
on
you
the
for
show.
having me.
I love it, and tell me one more time the name of your book so everybody can go get a copy of it.
Finding your capital S story, why your story drives your brand, available on Amazon.
Oh, I love it so much. Okay. Again, thank you. Everybody check out the show notes. Go ahead and friend Paul on LinkedIn. And that way you guys can follow all the great advice that he's pushing out and the content and go get a copy of his book. I mean, it's amazing. And then you can decide, oh man, I need help with this. Go book an appointment with Paul and that way you can hang out today. Thanks guys for coming to the show and I'll see you next time.